And you're online. Please start.
Hi, everybody. Good day from around the world. I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host for today's episode of VCTV. We're here back again for another episode to talk this time about what's happening around travel, transportation, and the supply chain industry. Now, this is a very important topic that we've been building up to all week long. We've talked about fintech, we've talked about blockchain, we've talked about AI, we've talked about edge. And now here we are. Here we are joined with investors from around the world who have been investing in this space, not just for the past few years, but decades in some cases, that really know what's happening and what has been moving and shifting in the trends throughout these areas. We've seen travel in some cases come to a complete stop, and others, boom. If we look back to 2008, we saw the birth of the gig economy where we saw the travel industry redefined. Now we look ahead to what comes next. When it comes to transportation, we're looking at where things are shifting and how we are looking at the future of transportation, whether that be a new version of last mile. So think scooters, short form, getting from point A to point B before we get to the bigger destination. Or that's how we are moving throughout cities, or autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, looking at how our methods of transportation will change. And then supply chain. Supply chain is probably one of the biggest conversation topics of today, as for the past 6 months, supply chains have been disrupted around the world. No longer can this happen going forward. On previous episodes, we've mentioned the keywords of hyperlocal, localize, digitize. These are all keywords that play into the future of supply chains and where things may go. And we'll find out a little bit more today. So without further ado, I do want to welcome all of our guests. But before I do, we have two things we always start off this episode with. First and foremost, thank you. Thank you on a happy Friday to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for making this all possible. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't all be here. So they do all the work behind the scenes to make us look good and to get you this information. Two, your audience. Thank you for tuning in today. We're excited to have you from around the world, both investors, entrepreneurs, everyone else in between. At any point in time, if you do have questions, you do have comments, feel free to type them in the chat box. We'll do our best to ask them in real time. If not, we're all available afterwards, and we'll try to make sure that we can get to you, or feel free to reach out to us. And if you like today's episode, click the subscribe button, the thumbs up, and tune in as we have further episodes as well. Now, to our guests. Gentlemen, super excited to have you. We've got one more that'll jump on here in just a few minutes. But Patrick, if you could kick us off, quick introduction on yourself, your firm, and then also kind of how you got into this space, both on the venture side and where you focus at ETF.
So at ETF, we focus on what we call sustainability through innovation. So we focus on European companies that have revenue and great growth prospects that also make a positive difference. And I guess I started the firm in 2006, seems like a long time ago now, when I came back from California after the whole dot-com era, where I started a venture business for a firm called 3i. And I was coming back to Europe because my kids are growing up. And I thought, well, what can I do where there's an advantage to being in Europe, right? And frankly, what's worthwhile. And I put those two things together, and a decade too early, started a fund focused on sustainability. But the time is right now, and because we were too early, I think we're now seen as a leader in what we do in Europe.
I couldn't agree more. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit more about Europe. I'll hold my story until we get through the introductions. But welcome to the show. And while 2016 sounds like forever, so does last week. So we're all on the same page there. A man who I feel probably doesn't need an introduction, but I will nonetheless have him provide an introduction. Mr. David Blumberg, welcome to the show, and same to you. Introduction, a little background on how you got into the space.
Sure. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. It's a pleasure to be with the La Token family, broadly distributed around the world, all these wonderful entrepreneurs and great investors. Thank you for making it possible. Blumberg Capital is a classic early stage venture capital fund. We're based in San Francisco. We have teammates also in New York, Miami, and an office in Tel Aviv. And so we're very open-minded about where entrepreneurs start and we try and help them launch into the major early adopter markets of North America, Europe, and increasingly Japan and Asia. Our focus is on B2B businesses, business to business, SaaS model companies, so mostly software. Most of the thesis has been about artificial intelligence combining algorithms combining with big data sources and traversing the internet and other modes of distribution to reach much, much larger audiences. Whereas in the past, AI and big data were the realms only of, and the cost factors only worked for governments and large corporations. Today we see the technology becoming much more easy to use, lower cost, available, and so it can be also very successful for startups, mid-sized companies, and individuals. So that's sort of our thesis. We like to lead seed and A rounds from a few $100,000 investment up to say 6 million on the first check, and we can go up to 15 million over time. Let's see what else. I think that's a pretty good start for now.
I would think so. That's great. Welcome to the show. We've got 2 for 3 next up. Felix, welcome to the show. Happy to have you, and the same as well, a little introduction.
Thanks for having me again, in fact, because I was here already in April or May, I think, together with Sunny, talking about COVID and the crisis and what's going on. Still, a lot is going on. I feel with blockchain, we are busy as never before. Everybody's working from home. That means we're working 7 days a week now. So I'm Felix Margot from Dash Digital Cash, one of the old dogs out in the crypto space. Still one of the top projects out in the crypto space, and we have, actually a very simple and straightforward use case that is digital cash. So we want to do payments, and we want to do that good. I think actually we are in a very, very good way. So we have been focused on the user mass adoption side of crypto payments on the one side, and on the other side on merchant adoption, because of course it's always a chicken and an egg problem. If you don't have merchants accepting cryptocurrencies, you cannot spend it, and if you don't have customers spending it, you most likely will not get merchants. So this is where I'm very much focused on. I'm from Dash Next. So Dash is a completely decentralized organization. In fact, we are the first decentralized autonomous organization, DAO, in the world since 2014. So we have a very next level governance approach on how everybody can contribute. So there's no formal hierarchy in Dash. There's no CEO. There's only decentralized teams working to fulfill this mission I just described, to making crypto payments possible. And I'm the co-founder of 2 projects within this new kind of organization, namely Dash Next and Dash Thailand. We kicked off with building a use case here in Asia, in Thailand, which was obviously, as we are in one of the biggest tourism economies in the world, the use case to establish first, and then to go out and show that it's possible, that you can do it, that crypto payments can be a sustainable thing. And now mainly focused on Dash Next, which is essentially the business development and partnership unit within Dash. So, we leverage being here in Asia, leveraging the local networks we have, going around and driving mass adoption on every vertical and for every industry. So we have onboarded a lot in the last couple of years, not only in retail, but also in gambling, gaming, CBD, THC is obviously a big use case in the States with, you cannot get bank accounts. And of course, this is why we are here today for the travel industry. So we have onboarded many travel platforms, and I'm happy to elaborate on that a little more later.
Wonderful. Well, gentlemen, welcome to the show. So super excited again. This is I think going to be a fun panel, as we talked about pre-show. It's Friday. Let's have some fun. But to kind of kick us off, you're all 3 in different locations: Europe, Asia, and here in the States. Each kind of focused on one of these areas, so travel, transportation, and supply chain. Would love to get each of your opinion, and Patrick, we'll start with you and we'll come around. What has been accelerated when it comes to these 3 industries? We know that COVID existed. We know that times have changed in the last 6 months, but going forward, a lot of these industries we've talked about on previous shows have been digitized.
Yep.
They were either being accelerated or are accelerated now more than ever because of this. So in your mind, what's happening in these? What has changed in these three areas, Patrick?
Well, I think there's an acceleration of all things digital, and I guess people are familiar with that idea over the past month or two, but we're really seeing that happening rapidly. We started to invest quite a lot in this area of transport, mobility, supply chain, because we saw it as an area which hadn't been digitized, and frankly, an area creating enormous environmental damage. And so we thought there was a great opportunity for tech to make a difference. But one of the things that surprised me is now it's not just efficiency, it's also safety. So I'll tell you a story, if you like. One of our companies here in Europe called Zelo, which was doing digitized bus services, right? Getting employees into transport deserts to big companies. And a little startup doing really well, nice guys, lost 80% of the revenue in the first week on lockdown in the UK. And we thought, we didn't think good things, right? And we encouraged them to cut costs, we encouraged them to be creative. And one of the creative thoughts was to pivot slightly into providing safe transportation for critical workers. And now safety in transportation is a huge theme. And this company's run rate is now twice what it was at the start of, before the whole lockdown. And actually the prospects are even better. And we think there's a great future. So we're seeing not just digitization, but safety and resilience now is coming forwards and really driving revenue for companies.
So with that, a quick question. So I've looked at transportation as well for 5-10 years and made some investments myself in the space, and it's exciting. But you brought up a key thing, is that runway is an issue, right? And we've got Tesla, who now just surpassed Comcast in terms of market cap. We've got cities like the city of Shenzhen that has gone fully electric vehicles in terms of public transportation in about a year and a half above or faster than their mandate of 2 years. Is this really a time to start investing in transportation and mobility, or are we still a little ahead of this curve as we look at it together?
I think there's a long way to go on this, and people kind of, I guess behind your question is the suggestion that autonomous vehicles are the end of the road, and I'm not really sure that's right. I think it's just a long road, and perhaps sharing and efficiently utilizing assets is nearer the end of the road. One of our other companies, Viewlog, does that actually, and it's been booming, right? So there's a lot to go at, and it's not just, everything hasn't been Uberized, right? So we're seeing a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very good point. And I think you're right. And David, I want to come to you before I get to Felix, because Patrick, as you mentioned, AV may not be the end of the road, right? There is a middle ground. There are probably a few more steps that we get there. Everyone just wants us to be here. And David, you've been making early bets in all types of areas, and specifically around AI and data, which is a little bit of the technology powering AV. So, coming back to that initial question, how are you seeing things shift and change here in these spaces?
Sure. The interesting thing is that this crisis, and not the medical crisis, although that has a role, it's really been the governmental reaction all around the world at various times and in waves that has caused the acceleration of the virtual, of the digital. And so the thesis that we invested on got this unusual, unexpected boost. And I'm sure that most of the entrepreneurs on the phone are going to be experiencing this. Those of you who deal in the physical world, if you own a bar, a florist, if you own a sports team, a dance hall, things like that are physical, that's going to be suffering. And I have empathy for you, and it's tragedy. However, for those of us fortunate enough to work in the digital world, this is actually an accelerant. It is a great time to be an entrepreneur. It's a great time to be heads down, focus on product development. If you can't sell so much, you can build. And then when you come out, as we are starting to come out in the recovery movement, it is your time to shine and to sell in a more digital, virtual manner. And we're seeing that with our companies. Also, on the cost, that's on the revenue side. On the cost side, we're seeing a decline in operating costs. I'll give you one example. We invested in a supply chain resilient company called Slync, S-L-Y-N-C. I think it's .io. They are based originally in San Francisco. They were about to sign a lease right in downtown San Francisco, a large office, expensive rent. We were kind of choking, but they were going to do it. And we said, okay. And now they're going to go all virtual. The CEO is moving to Texas because he thinks it's a better climate for his children, safer, lower taxes, all that. And he's going to have the team work entirely remotely. And they're going to take the money that they were going to spend on an office in San Francisco headquarters and put it into their remote offices in Singapore and in Germany or Switzerland, because it's an international, global, intermodal supply chain firm. We can talk about that later, but it's an interesting pivot in the physical. They haven't pivoted their product, but they're pivoting their physical workspace, because we can now know that we're probably more productive working from home in many cases, even though there are little minor young children distractions and so on. It's a shorter commute. You don't have to travel and waste time in airports. So basically, we've done everything virtual. We've made 2 investments completely virtually now, and we've done 4 since the crisis began. So we continue to invest apace, and we think it's a great opportunity. Remember that 50% of the Fortune 500 companies were started in downturns or recessions, and 50 unicorns appeared and were born in the last big recession of the 2008 through 11 mortgage crisis. I'll pause there.
Yeah, it's you're bringing up some great points in where we are and where we're going, and the idea of this, again, digitized economy, this digitized world really offers a whole new opportunity for so many. We talked about this on a previous show, in the rise of a virtual economy. That, you know, today we are 2008. Just to go back to your reference, we saw the birth of the gig economy, as I mentioned, around travel, right? Airbnb and the likes were born. I started a company very similar back then in a similar space, and we gave power to individuals to generate new forms of income, passive or not. And now you have this rise, and Felix, this is building up to you, this rise of this virtualized economy, and where everything is digital, where we can create digital goods, digital services. We can be a little bit more income diverse, if you will, which as investors is exciting to invest in those opportunities, right? As consumers and as employees, it's great to see that we have multiple streams to focus on as well. And technologists, well, if they're like me, just nerd out about it and get super excited at what all the technology is going to bring. And so, Felix, same to you. You know, what are you seeing change in each of these areas? You're in Asia. You are in literally the supply chain, arguably what was the supply chain capital of the world, was being a key point there. And transportation wise, I already mentioned with Shenzhen, but we see this across the entire greater Bay Area. So throughout China, Hong Kong, Macau, and throughout the rest of Asia, that transportation is dramatically different than it is here in the States or in Europe. So what are you seeing change in all these areas? And then I'll come back to the digital currency side. Don't worry. I've got you there. But what are you seeing change?
Yeah, thank you. I would also like to start a little high level, and add to the fantastic points David just mentioned. Actually, I'm a digital innovation consultant, by a long time ago. Before I entered the blockchain world, I was always trying to help, the usual corporations getting more digital. And, it's kind of a running gag for me for many years. It's like we kept saying in like the last years, blockchain is so 2015 and AI actually is so 2016, because, I remember these times when we were sitting in the room with like people with big glasses like me, and already, the world was already digitized in our little bubble. And when you come out, you realize, oh my God, that's not the case. We were talking for years that blockchain is kind of like the base layer. Everything will be stored in a decentralized manner, and then AI will, get away all the jobs because operations suddenly will be shifted, and the computers are doing the job. And now, if I buy a tent on Amazon, I will get spammed with more tents for the next 5 weeks instead of that they show me a flashlight or a camping cooker. So this is like how far we are away from actually like everything is going to be artificial intelligence and everything. And this is not so different in Asia than it is in the States. There's many different levels, which has to do also a lot with, what governments can pull off if they want it. I was like last year, the first time actually in Beijing, and was blown away that everything, is completely electro cars only. There is no smoke, and I was like expecting actually not to see the sun, you know, because that's what everybody was telling me, and quite the opposite, you know. So I was super shocked. So for me, you know, it's rather right now a chance, and I would always like to, you know, focus on the chances we have, and I see many things are suddenly possible that were just not possible out of often very stupid arguments, like we always did it like that, we cannot do it, you know, we need a paper-based process, we have to be together in an office, and suddenly we realize, oh my god, suddenly it's possible because we have to do it, right? So this is gives us a chance. But you know, on the other hand, I always, you know, think if you have like a small wooden house and you try to build a skyscraper on top of it, you know, maybe better to tear down the house before and, you know, flatten the ground and build your skyscraper. So this is the way I always look at technical architecture or building something new. You know, the problem is that many of our business model and many of the corporations just don't have business models that are, you know, designed with tech in mind. So you always had rather tech as a cost factor, and I think this is something which I see changing a lot. And, you know, cryptocurrencies, just to, you know, to get a little bit there now, they, you know, it's about solving problems. So the question is always like, what problems can it solve for a business? And obviously, you know, we can cut down costs, we can cut down transaction speeds, we, you know, we can just provide value by the stuff we are doing and the stuff we are offering. And, you know, it's an open invitation for everybody who runs a company just to reach out and at least evaluate what options they have, you know, without completely changing their existing business, but improving it by quite some steps.
So on that note, I have a vision of the future that I think a lot of us would share, or those in the audience as well, where, you know, the things in our life work with and for us to help generate additional revenue and make our lives easier, right? The idea that we're as we're sleeping, our autonomous vehicle, to jump ahead of Patrick's point, our autonomous vehicle is out, you know, Ubering away or providing services. And that while we're on our way to work, you know, the vehicles themselves are transacting and sharing data, to David's point. And from that, we are generating something. And I know that the auto and the mobility space, there has been some talk of a digital currency or the integration of fintech, we'll just say as a bigger picture, integrated into the world of mobility. How do you see this really playing out? Is there a world for a digital currency, whether it's Dash or others, for the future of mobility and kind of what role it may play?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about companies integrating something, and a company will not integrate something if the business case is not there. You know, we always back in 2015 thought that now everybody is, you know, is not using fiat currencies anymore. Everybody's just, you know, wants to have this new crazy stuff. And when you go out, when you talk to corporations, when you talk to merchants out there, I mean, what the most frequently asked questions is, do I have to invest something? And what is the risk? So if the risk is that the currency I accept is going down by 50% tomorrow, of course, it's not really a good value proposition. So what we have done, you know, is went around all over the world and give end-to-end options. So I'm partnering a lot with different fiat gateways, payment rails, payment providers, processors, whatever it is, you know, like to enable the middle layer and to provide an end-to-end solution. So if you are a merchant in Singapore, you know, I can offer you a Singapore Dash to Singapore dollar instant settlement. The same I can do with US dollar or whatever, right? So it's about really evaluating solutions and plugging it in. You know, the point is, especially in Asia, and this is also something we often overlook in the Western world. It's a different world now in terms of payment. If you go to any store here in Asia, you usually have like 50 QR codes right at the door, and it's very normal, you know. And in contrast to that, credit cards are not that widely accepted. You know, often it's $20 minimum, or they're not accepted at all. So WeChat, Alipay, you know, this is super normal. So what we offer with Dash and other cryptocurrencies, by just giving QR codes and then have a fiat settlement to a bank account, very much integrates on what they already have, with the difference is that it's cheaper.
That was one of the craziest things when I was living in Asia. Just the idea that I no longer had to remember a wallet or had to bust out a credit card or had to worry about cash or anything, that at just any moment I could literally just scan a little code, which, by the way, 5-10 years ago in the US was just crazy town that anybody was even looking at these things. As we were working early days with that around early augmented reality, very early. And now it's becoming a common payment term, replacing the barcode as we know it.
If I may add one more thing, even if I look at my banking app, the classical non-crypto stuff, it's so much more advanced than everything I know from. I mean, I'm German, so everything I know from a bank account in Europe, it's so far advanced. It's just normal that even I press a button, there is the QR code. The other side shows me their QR code, and the money is there instantly. It's like in 1 second. I just went, in fact, to a restaurant and I didn't have cash on me, so I did a bank transfer, and within 1 second, that's okay. I share my slip on WhatsApp, and it's like it's something we are not used to in the Western world.
Yeah, and it's something that we should be so obvious that it works, but we're still, as you said, as investors, we're always looking ahead, right? So we think it should be there, but it takes time for these things to catch up. And David, to that point, I mean, I think you had a point on transportation. Would love to hear your thoughts on where the future of transportation is going. And Patrick, I've got a question around this for you as well.
Sure. First, I'd actually like to do a shout out and a thank you to all the entrepreneurs that are listening in, because I'm so grateful for what you guys are doing every day. It's truly amazing, and you're really stepping into the breach. You are essential workers. Don't forget that. The fact that the world is becoming more digital, more virtual, is due to you, your efforts. That we stand on broad shoulders of the people who've gone for us and created internet and all that. But today, the new applications, as Felix just mentioned, are so much leaner, simpler, easier. We can do KYC, we can do AML, we can take care of compliance, we can do cybersecurity, we can do user onboarding, all kinds of things much more simply. We can do things much more efficiently. So thank you, and keep doing it. We're very proud. And so I think most people have a social mission now. It's productivity. It's serving your fellow human being. And whether it's explicit in your mission statement or not, as far as I can tell, all the companies we're investing in have a social mission. They're serving somebody, making something faster, better, cheaper, or making it available than when it wasn't prior. Okay, end of sermon. Second topic is transportation. On the transportation mode, because of the pandemic and social distancing and the need for that, or the fear that people have, we're seeing a change. We're seeing, let's call it, going long, going short. Going long, suburbia; going short, urban towers. Bloomberg Capital is moving, not because of this, but it's a convenient feature, not a bug. We're going to move to our own building. We're going to have our own building. It's on the storefront, retail level, walk in, no elevator banks to contend with, no wiping down of the buttons and all that. So I think that is going to become a mode. I think people are going to say, hey, I like living in the suburbs. My kids are there, the school's there. I can just stay in an office, place, or in my home. So I think there's going to be a change in where we travel, number one, and airplanes, the whole second level. And then on the local, we've invested in a company that some of you may know in Europe, especially, called Wunder Mobility. And they are serving as a software layer. And this goes to the point, everything is becoming more digital. So they're a software layer for intermodal human transport. And if you start coming in from a remote suburb, and then you come to a parking lot and you pick up a scooter, and then you do the last mile on a scooter fleet, these kind of transactions and the maintenance can all be managed by the Wunder software platform. That's an example. I think we're going to see a lot more individual transport. People are afraid, whether it's valid or not, of dense, crowded platforms such as metros, subways, airplanes. So I think there's going to be more scootering, more biking, more solo driving, that kind of thing, where you minimize the close human connection. So that kind of transport is going to be important. And then people will be commuting less distances, so they can also afford things that, or not afford, but they can utilize transportation modes that might not be appropriate for a 30-mile commute. But if you're only commuting a block or a mile, a scooter is fine.
Wow. Yeah, and I think that's the short long is a very interesting conversation. You know, whether to stay in the city or migrate out to urban areas, right, or do the urban commercial, which has been a growing topic, and we're starting to see in the States at least, the rise of several call it tier 2 or tier 3 cities in a reference to Asia, where these cities that were once kind of up and coming have now just all of a sudden become small metropolises almost overnight.
You see it in the lower cost factors. I mean, the Bay Area has priced itself to a point, in New York and other great cities, London, to a point where it's really unaffordable for the people who are job entrants. That's the issue. When you want to start family formation, it's been very, very tough. And so I think you're going to see a spread. People either will move to remote or to ex-urban, out in the country, quote unquote, where the prices are a lot cheaper, the air is, clean to breathe and all that, or even to second tier, third tier, smaller cities. Why not live in Aspen? It's lovely. Maybe it's expensive, but you get the picture. And I think we're starting to see people make those choices now more than ever.
Well, or even where Patrick is, and to that point further, one of the things that because we're again all spread out, when I was spending time in Asia, one of the things that Asia did very well to that point is here in the Bay Area, it's very expensive. You get all the resources, you have the ecosystem, that's wonderful, but it can be very, very pricey, even for a short amount of time. And you look at what was happening in Asia is these startup ecosystems were rising everywhere with huge benefits, huge support, really great incentives for you to come. And even furthermore, in Europe, you had the spread. You had a little bit of pricey real estate, but you also had low cost. And in the middle, you had these ecosystems like the Netherlands, throughout France, Portugal, and others that started offering similar incentives to those in Asia, driving entrepreneurs to move around, which I think, David, to your point, and welcome, Tess, I got coming to you in a second. I think building all this up, it's no longer one size fits all. Right? There are options. And because of that, we have chosen to experience these options and see the rewards that they can bring, not just for our companies, but for us ourselves as well. And not to digress, but I do agree with that long short. I think there's something really exciting there as well. But Patrick, I want to come to you real quick on transportation. So you've made a few investments. You're in Europe where things have changed throughout as well. And I guess the question I really have is, what's been the biggest barrier to entry for getting into the mobility and transportation space? There's a lot of opportunity in it. You've seen, it's what has been some of those barriers maybe stopping or holding back companies?
It's a great question, and we have been making a number of investments in the area. Actually, since lockdown, we've even made one or two. We invested in a company called Urbance in Belgium that does last mile delivery software. Fantastic business, but I'm really pleased we met them before lockdown started, right? Because lockdown is certainly and transport difficulties for people is certainly a huge barrier around Europe right now, which is likely to persist. But above that, Europe's very fragmented, right? We actually just announced our first deal in Greece, a company called DeepSea, which does artificial intelligence for making shipping far more efficient. And it's a wonderful business, but it's not typical to invest in Greece. It's the first time we've done it, right? And so the fragmented nature of the European economy is a huge hurdle for investors across Europe, not just from outside of Europe. And we've had to build a team that is European, a multinational team, to be able to do it. For entrepreneurs, it's more difficult to expand, and we take people carefully country by country. But that said, there's just phenomenal opportunity now. And I think someone mentioned the impact of government. And I think this will be profound now in a kind of post-COVID era. We've seen the European Union announce enormous support programs, €750 billion to rebuild the new economy. We've seen Germany announce €140 billion of support to build a new economy. And these new economies are not going to be like the old ones. They're going to be much more tech, much more green. And so actually we think this is there's going to be a huge acceleration of tech and sustainability and change, which is going to make a profound difference to Europe and its opportunities, but it's still hard to access, I admit.
Well, and I think you bring up the key word is it's very fragmented. And in some cases, Asia has a similar situation. Here in the States, we're, I guess, considered very lucky on how that maybe lack of fragmentation happens. It's different, but it's a little less. I remember looking at companies throughout Europe, and a company in Sweden was very different from a company in France, right? A company in Italy was very different to a company in Spain, not just the regulations, but the entire customer set, right? Customers from France to the Netherlands, just for conversation, two different worlds, right? Not to mention potentially two different languages, just two different worlds.
Yeah, different worlds, different cultures, but coming together. And Europe is a huge market, right? Frankly, much bigger market than the States. And so if you can access it, it's showing great opportunity, and we're really very optimistic about it. Clearly, all venture capitalists are always optimistic, but genuinely, I've been in this business a long time, and we think it's going to be a phenomenal few years coming up.
But to your point, I'll back you up, and to the audience, look, I've been looking at companies in Europe for 10 years. And I will tell you this, in the past 5 years, things have dramatically changed. So investors like Patrick, you can look at the numbers, okay? For the past 3 years, and specifically the past 2 years, very, very heavily, things have changed on the entire investment scene throughout Europe. So if you're a company looking to raise, it's a great place.
Yeah, and we're seeing actually more better repeat entrepreneurs, and the quality of our deal flow, to slip into jargon, not just the quantity, but the quality is rising quite dramatically. So in spite of the tragedy we're living through, we're optimistic about the future. And actually, we do think that Europe and the world needs to change, right? We are quite missionary about it with our business. It's set up with an aim in mind, and we want to show that venture capital can really make a difference, right? So we should be as ambitious as the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm bullish. Buy. But no, seriously, if you are an entrepreneur looking at Europe, this is an opportunity. And you've got investors here from all 3 different countries. And Felix, I see you shaking your head. I mean, you're splitting the bill. I mean, you're German, as you mentioned, so you're from Europe. I'm sure you've seen some things positively and negative in terms of the investment scene. Things grow and shrink. And now you're in Asia. I mean, are you seeing similar growth opportunities as well?
Yeah, for me, being in Asia is mind-blowing. What I always used to say is that there's different internets. In fact, there's such a huge gap from the stuff we know. I remember when I was the first time in Beijing, you come out of the plane and suddenly Google doesn't work. So, what you're going to do is like, I fall on the floor, start crying for my mom, because I'm so helpless, So you really have to be prepared, and, it's a different world. And I'm always blown away by how fast things are moving here. But, right now the times are tough. So investments, it's not what it used to be in 2017, where everybody's throwing money at you for mentioning the word blockchain or artificial intelligence. And I'm actually very happy about that, because at the end of the day, investments are not a donation, but they are investments into business. So they are investing into business models. And please come up with a business model if you want investments, and think about what can you provide, what value proposition can you have, and how are you able to execute your idea, and that comes often down to good old boring Excel spreadsheets, even though you do tokens. So, we helped a lot of projects with token economics and help them answering the question, like, how can you deal with the sell pressure of what you have? It's super beautiful, and it's like a radical new concept that you're able to design your own token. But I'm also a political scientist by university, so I was always wondering, how can we blockchain people think that we can design perfect systems without, there is a reason that you have monetary policy in the world, and you are able to deal with inflation by printing money or not printing money and all these good old boring things, So this is what you have to come up with. You have to come up with a plan, with a design, with a business model, and at the end of the day, also customers that buy something. And this is why I'm very happy that we are working for a cryptocurrency that is actually not. It was way before the ICO wave, so we never sold any tokens to investors. So they had to mine them, they had to start coming in, and now we have like kind of a radical concept for an organization that is constantly producing block rewards by every block that is produced in the Dash blockchain, and we have a very clever and unique way of distributing it, because we say these block rewards do not only go to the miners, but we distribute them to 45% miners, 45% masternodes, and 10% project funding. Masternodes are essentially decision makers. They stake 1,000 Dash, and for that they have the right to vote for these last 10%. And these last 10% is the operational budget that Dash has for the teams all around the world. And now the radical thing is that everybody can pitch for that 10%. And in essence, that means everybody in the world can become an entrepreneur in Dash with the business idea and pitch it to the community. So the decision makers are completely decentralized, and it's completely open and inclusive, because in fact, it's no difference if I'm a Nigerian to pitch an idea or if I'm an American. In contrast to that, try to apply for a job as a Nigerian in America, right? You're gonna have a hard time.
Right. It's a complete flip of the traditional venture model, which is good in terms of how things are growing and expanding, right? There's more ways than ever to access capital or opportunities, which is good for us as investors to see all this happen, because as it's what we do, right? It's to thrive on that. But Tess, we're coming to you. I want to circle back to the question of roadblocks or barriers to entry. So would love to get your opinion. I know you've made some investments in the travel and hospitality space and a little bit in supply chains. What have you seen as some of the barriers to entry that entrepreneurs have had, and maybe even you as an investor and investing in these spaces, right? They're a little different than your typical, with all respect, David, your typical SaaS business, because they do function very differently. So what are some of the barriers to entry you've seen?
Yeah, so definitely. Thank you, Kyle. So I'm Tess Howe, founder of Tess Ventures. We invest early stage and really active strategically helping the founders. So one of my portfolio company, they recently have shared their hardship. They obviously were focusing on children, sort of like children for Uber. And ever since COVID happened, with no school, with everyone staying at home, that has been challenging. And she's pivoted to grocery delivery. So obviously in this time and era of what's happening, anyone that wants to start anything in the travel industry is going to be faced with barriers. For example, I have another company that I am incubating and helping them. They actually are focusing on, I think, a very good area that I myself have pain points in, which is when we do travel again, I really will think about travel insurance, because I travel often to Southeast Asia, especially Jakarta, and their hospital system compared to what we have in North America is not the same. Typically, even my friends who are the family office, they fly to Singapore, which is an hour away, if they get sick. So I was thinking, wow, this is going to create significant just pain points for myself when I go in there for meetings and help with their smart cities. I help give them ideas. They ask me as to what they see as what I see as the technology that we're using here, so they can build out, because they leapfrogged. So obviously what they're building out is almost like New York on steroids, Shanghai on steroids, super exciting market. There's unicorns there. A lot of my Stanford VCs are there. So what I'm saying about the health tech insurance company, they are focusing on, providing this travel arrangement so we can have peace of mind, knowing that when we do fly, it's going to be a different type of insurance that we all may want. I for sure will want that. Having a family, I want to make sure I'm protected, and kind of how that looks like. However, they did say anything with the word travel is like, no one's touching it right now. And I absolutely understand it. I'm very bullish because the executive team is amazing. They're serial entrepreneurs. However, how do you get conviction of others? So unfortunately, I did share it's about the narrative and the storytelling, like what you're going to focus on first. Because at this time, when you do your fundraising, when you do your pitches, it is about that emotional psychology that you got to get through so the investors understand. So focus on the other aspects that we all care about right now, and kind of like what the market and the media is saying. I don't think anyone should conform to what they believe in. However, your focus as a founder is fundraising so that you can survive and get your vision out there. So again, surround yourself with awesome advisors and try to bring in those angel investors in the early days. And if you have further growth, definitely bring in the right strategic investors that are going to be on top of what is happening in the market that can guide you. Like for myself, I had a lot of friends in Wuhan in December. So when I flew in January, February, I was already wearing like the heavy duty mask. And, on the airlines, everyone thought I was like, very odd, but I knew what was coming. And when I came back to SFO, I said to the car rental people, I said, you guys going to have to get masks. And they're like, why? And they have not heard of coronavirus. So I've already been very lucky, just like Sequoia, because they have a China arm, they were able to anticipate what was going to happen. So I've already shared that, intelligence with my portfolio company. And many of them at that time continuously, did listen, and they extended a bridge round or, a seed extension. So they were able to be, now capital flushed to get through the next 18 months, especially with one of my top portfolio companies in privacy and authentication. They are doing biometrics. So imagine the world passwordless. We will not have to touch anything. And that is critical. The amount of inbound interest of what, everyone is focusing on that. When you check out, no one wants to touch anything, especially because I invested, not because of the Corona thesis, obviously at that time. It was because, privacy is something that's very big, and they have FIDO2 certification. Therefore, authentication is what they're gonna, be partnering out with enterprises and even consumer. They're B2B, B2C, and on top of that, now that there's this coronavirus, besides the fact that they can focus on privacy, and a lot of times I preach privacy by design, which is what Ann Cavoukian, absolutely encourage everyone. Every startup should build in privacy right from the start, build it into the tech plan, build it into their culture, because that is what, in this new world, in this new normal, everyone's going to care about. On one side, we want to share our data when we talk about travel and transportation tech, right? Like we are going to be tracked even more. But how do, enterprises, companies that are developing these frontier technology solutions are going to be responsible and give comfort to the users so that we are okay giving permission to share this data, which is critically important for all of us to tackle what is happening in the world right now. So I can pause there, Kyle.
Yeah, because it's a really great point to end on, but we've got 3 different regions of the world with 3 very different data and privacy policies. So whether it's GDPR, it's here in the United States, to California's own data policies, to then Asia's as well. So I completely agree. We're going to hold on the privacy aspect because everyone will have a very specific, different opinion on that. But when it comes to mention global ID or just the idea of authentication, I'm incredibly bullish with you on that. The idea of decentralized identity. And I think as an investor, this is a great, great space to play in, and will play a role in each of these areas, right? Global passport when we travel, ID and authentication to when we go into transportation, and potentially may play a role into our supply chains as well. But I want to touch a little bit further on one thing you mentioned. So the transportation company, and Patrick mentioned this earlier with one of his portfolio companies, is they found a new angle, right? They shifted into a new spot. But furthermore, what type of new economies or marketplaces may we start to see in the next 12 to 18 months starting to come out of this? And David, I'm going to start with you. I know you've got a few companies that are focused on this. You've made some investments in this space, but just in general, your opinion, what are we going to see rise out of this when it comes to these new economies and marketplaces that exist?
Great question. And it's a reason for such optimism that the marketplace model is really proving itself efficient and resilient in this time. For example, we just in the US, most people on the call will know about something. Most governments did something similar called the Paycheck Protection Plan loans, PPP, done by the Small Business Administration. Again, Germany had a similar program, Canada, Israel, other places. So what happened here is that many of the existing banks that you have a relationship with didn't want to participate. They didn't know how to participate. Their legacy systems were too old, too burdensome, and it caused entrepreneurs to be rejected by their own banks. So luckily, we had invested prior in a company called Lendio, Lendio, and we have probably a third of our portfolios in fintech, and so it's very active. And frankly, thank God, they're doing really well. Their lending lines have not been pulled. They've been able to continue lending and so on, whereas a lot of folks have pulled back. And I think it's partly to Patrick's point and Tess and the others, that it's this virtual aspect that makes them able to survive this crisis much better. They're based on underwriting that's done, I'll take Fundbox as an example, underwriting that has no humans involved. It's all driven by AI, machine learning specifically, and looking at the data, the big data flows of e-invoicing out and what your payments stream is coming in. So we can underwrite you without all of the rigmarole and going to an office and the historical scores and so on. Anyways, back to Lendio. Lendio, in a period of a couple of weeks, was able to hire 200 people, bring 300 new banks onto their platform, and provide incredible opportunities such that they provided and were able to facilitate matches between borrowers and banks and non-bank lenders for more loans than any other institution in the entire United States, which is a shocker. For a startup to beat JP Morgan and Bank of America is kind of stunning. Now, they did larger loans, but that shows that we can also help the most vulnerable, the people that are least connected, not part of the old boy network, who didn't have established banking relationships, because we provided 300 or 400 bank opportunities who might take a risk. And so that matching function of marketplaces is super valuable. It's why the internet is so superior to point-to-point communications of the previous generation. So that's just one example. And if we go to supply chain, thank goodness for the supply chain. And now it's really taking off in this new way. Patrick mentioned it, that the applications are so much easier to use. So for example, in the old days, the large freight forwarders, let's take DHL, Hellman, Kuehne+Nagel, all big names that most of you know, or they're B2Bs, you might not know them, but they get you fed, they get you clothed, they get you heated, they bring all the stuff around the world. They used to build their own software. Most of these industries used to build their own software, and they were not invented here syndrome places. Their IT department would say, no, we can't take a risk on a startup. Today, it's the reverse. They can't risk not working with startups. And so we're seeing companies like Slink and Intellage, which deals with physical commodity traders, getting incredible orders and re-ups in the last few months. While everybody's sheltered in place and stuck and looking like a deer in the headlights, large companies are saying, we need the help of startups. We're going virtual. We need end-to-end visibility in our supply chain. We need to reconfigure our supply chains. We need to diversify them, make them more resilient, more subject to cybersecurity protection. All these things are changing, and in the favor of you entrepreneurs that are listening. The time is ripe right now for you to really jump ahead. I'll pause.
That's a great point. I think, going back even 6 months, 8 months ago, no one would say that in supply chain. They would turn away from it in most cases, right? Or those that are running the supply chains would be like, let's kind of see how this all works out. And now it's like, oh crap, we need you. Like, we need more of you. And Patrick, would love to hear your thoughts added onto this.
Yeah, I mean, we've been making a few investments in this area because we see it's been backward, right? I mean, you talked about the IT departments of these companies. They didn't have IT departments, most of them. they had people with pens and things were wrong. And so actually just the simple digitization of the supply chain is an enormous present opportunity. And that's why we've backed companies like Shipio here in Europe, which supplies visibility of where goods are, or Avance during lockdown, which does last mile delivery software. And these, these are, it doesn't sound like rocket science, but they have an enormous impact, and we're seeing great opportunity there. But more prosaically, if I may, we're seeing the world change from progress used to be measured by the rate at which we could travel, right? people rushing around more and more to get to things. And I'm kind of love the idea that this is turning around, and now we're backing technology to move things to people, right? Which is a bit smarter and a much more pleasant world, a much more environmentally friendly world for us all to live in. So I think, when you're talking about change, I'm very intrigued by the idea that the new world is all about people moving faster. It's about things moving intelligently to people.
I couldn't agree more. Felix, I see you shaking your head. Anything else to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to mention two things. First of all, I mean, for me, it's right now the time where, especially for the travel industry, where you don't sell travel, so maybe it's a time to focus on how you can upgrade your tech stack and how you could implement other payment solutions. In fact, I just saw from one of our partners that travels are coming back, that crypto payments are one big part of it. That's Travala, the company. We have other partners like Exotrip, Hotelier Mart. So please check them out. For me personally, it's always a matter of value proposition. If I can book a travel with my Dash and save 10% on my hotel, of course I'm going to do it, right? So this is what I think every normal consumer would do. So, the moment we onboarded these travel platforms, and now we have in the Dash network over 4 million hotels you can book globally. So I invite everybody to reach out to me and discuss, how we can do that for your company. Usually we do it in a way that we just plug in one of our partners. They have a 1% rate to go from Dash or other cryptocurrencies back to your fiat currency. So in fact, you have really a good offer for as a payment option. So this is one thing. The other thing I want to mention and want to add to what you just said, I totally agree. And I personally digged a lot into growth hacking recently. In fact, since we have launched Dash Philippines, and I have met many professionals there, we have built a lot of new services around growth hacking, digital and performance marketing. And what I've realized is that many companies and industries are completely in the stone age. Everybody's talking about the big platform economy. Yes, that's true, but actually it's sad that we give all that money to 3 to 5 super centralized monopolistic platforms where in fact, everybody can become clever on social media. And to be honest with you, it's mainly a matter of, do it, be friendly, engage people, have some clever ideas, and have a bit of common sense what you do. Just using hashtags in a clever way is one very practical example every entrepreneur can do. If you research like what platform is using what hashtag and how algorithms are reacting to that, you will see, you can reach a much bigger audience if you just sit down and do your homework. So one example I just realized, and I find it very funny, on LinkedIn, the hashtag India reaches around 70 million people, whereas the hashtag innovation will reach 40 million people, and this is something so simple you can do as an entrepreneur, and just people using random hashtags, not even thinking about how algorithm works. And it's something everybody can do, and it's really a matter of sitting down, reading some articles about it, or getting help from pros who know how to do it. But we are in a social media world, so entrepreneur, please deal with it and do it clever.
Well, and to Patrick's point, you take a moment and slow down. Take a moment to do your homework, and even furthermore on yours and Tess's point as well, is there's opportunities to move and shift here. And while it seems like everything is going light speed, which in most cases it is, take the moment to do your homework. That's one thing as entrepreneurs, we always say we do, or we always think, but we always forget, is to just pause. Think about why you're doing what you're doing. How are you trying to get to new markets? How are you trying to figure out what market to enter or not to enter? What are your use cases? What are the technologies that you should or shouldn't be integrating now or in the coming future? Take a moment, because when you pitch any of us, we're going to ask you those questions. We're going to poke holes in that plan that you may or may not have thought about. So while you are not traveling, to Felix's point right now, this is the optimal time. Not that you have to work 20 hours a day. To Tess's previous points, is health is first. But take the time when you're not getting on an airplane to just focus, slow down, and look at the areas that you need to accelerate in, and figure out how to work those. Felix brings up a good one. Hashtags. LinkedIn will tell you if you're trending sometimes in certain hashtags. Free advice. Pause and figure out what you just did, learn from that, and do it again and again and again. So tons of great advice. And everyone, I want to pause right here before we get back to this topic, because it's time for the second half of our show. We have 3 outstanding founders who have committed some time today to share and get up on stage, virtual or physical. I don't know if they've got a stage in their offices, to share with us what they've built. And we all know that this takes a lot to do, and even more so today, as this is going to be global. This is broadcast live to tens of thousands of people. So let's give them their moment to shine. So during the second half of the show, we're going to go through 3 startups. Each startup, you will have 5 minutes hard stomp to present not just us as investors, but to the entire audience. After each startup, we will go to the next one. After all startups have finished, we will get to Q&A and feedback for all of them. Investors, you have a form. If you haven't, ping Elena and she'll make sure you have it. Each of you will rank and give feedback to the companies. Get that in as soon as possible so that at the end of all presentations, we can announce the grand prize winner. Winners and startups, you're all winners today no matter what, but there will be one grand winner. As we go through, at the end, like I said, we will announce the winner. We'll let each of you give a quick sign off, and investors and our audience. We will get to the second half of the show where we will dive a little deeper on the investment side of things. So investors, ready yourselves. I want to open that Pandora box. How can our audience, whether investors or entrepreneurs, really ready themselves and see the opportunities going forward in these industries and beyond? Without further ado, let's kick off the second half of our show. All right, so Daniel, are you here? Yes, you are, but you're on mute.
No.
All right,
Sorry.
there you go. It's all
Thank you
right,
very much.
so Daniel, you're gonna have 5 minutes hard stop and I'm cutting you off, okay? So your
Okay.
time starts now. Go ahead and share your screen. The mic and floor is yours.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, it's all you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, good evening to everyone. So it's a pleasure for me to be here presenting Genobank. So this project was inspired by my son. My son has a genetic mutation, and he's thank God doing well. But there are like only in the U.S. Territory there are 7 million people with some kind of genetic related disease, and this project is dedicated to all of them. My name is Daniel Uribe, co-founder and CEO of Genobank. I am a cybersecurity and blockchain expert, and lately I've been doing a lot of research in bioinformatics and privacy laws. So as you may know, we are now into the precision medicine era, where of course the medicine is not only clinical, but data-driven, or some other will call them genome-guided or hyper-individualized medicine, right? In this era, unfortunately, the patient does not own the data. We are working very hard to make this happen. So what is the objective? Really quick, I've been into Matt Might presentation, and I love this very simple definition, which is give the right drug to the right patient at the right time. And I would say with the right genetic profile, right? So we have 2 accelerators now. Of course, it has to do with the cost. This will answer why now. Of course, we are entering into a hyper-accelerated market that we are able to read DNA for a almost or very affordable price. We will have hopefully a $99 whole genome sequence by 2021. Maybe we're already there. Just BGI company in China announced that, so we are certainly very close to that. So this is an accelerator. Now we have a DNA sequencer that costs less than an iPhone, coming from Oxford Nanopore, as you may know. So these 2 will accelerate the acquisition of DNA data. So just a couple of months ago, this was announced. Like, this is just an example of what we would like to avoid. So welcome to the own your data era. Privacy is now a product, as Tess was saying. So medical information, especially genetic information, was hacked. This is the case of Ambry Genetics. And we would like to avoid this type of cases where centralized databases are honeypots for hackers, right? These are 233,000 individuals' data in just one hack. So these are some of the problems of the past example. With only a few queries with genetic data, you can re-identify the donors because we are related and the DNA information is unique. It contains a full family reference, right? It's 50% your mother, 50% your father. You have data from your grandparents, your children, everything is there. So it's very difficult to de-identify this data. The other thing is that it has a monolithic authority over the biosamples or the biodata, and this is restricting open discoverings or citizen science. So this is our solution, right? So we are pairing a privacy-preserving DNA saliva kit. This is privacy-preserving because it's only represented by a QR code. It's anonymous by origin. With this, we would like to create this anonymous kind of undecentralized way of interacting with the DNA. Oh, give me 1 minute. So I'm running out of time, but I really want to tell you that our technology is based on science. We just got awarded by a third prize in the privacy and genomics using non-fungible tokens. So I will later give you some of this. So this is one of the interesting things. So we have a family DNA lab wallet, and we allowed mom and dad to sign using a signature for getting into the data. Thank
All
you
right, Daniel, thank you. Thank you very much as well. Raju, are you there? Raju? All right, looks like we may have lost. Oh, yeah, there you are.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Loud and clear. Floor is yours. You've got 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much for everybody for dialing in. I'm Raju Shivan, Cross Industry Solution founder of this company. I started this company in 1999. The main purpose of this company is to bring the innovative solutions to the industries to address their most critical pain points, what they are facing. Today, I'm presenting you the cyber geofencing, a new era in cybersecurity platform, what we are building. So the purpose of this is actually to offer the most innovative way, the state of the art, and easily adaptable, pluggable, and the most trustable cybersecurity platform as a service. As we had observed over past many years and decades that cybercrime is increasing, and we have observed the limitation of the current infrastructure and underlying technologies that fail to stop the cybercrime. One of the most haunted problems today in the industry is cybercrime losses. They are tripled in last 5 years. FBI reported just by sacrificing the business emails, it cost the industry $3.5 billion. And cybercrime industry is estimated to grow by $6 trillion by 2021. There are so many statistics you can observe across, cyber criminals have earned more than $1.5 trillion in 2018. The cryptocurrency losses are staggered to $4.5 billion last year.
I'm sorry, we don't see your slides. Are you showing them?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Can you see it? Yeah. Oh,
sorry. No, we can't.
We're not. Yeah.
Oh, what happened? Can you see it? I am sharing it.
No.
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 Oh,
we just see you.
Oh, hold on. Let me see what happened.
It's all right. It's okay. It's okay. Just
okay. So, all right. So the solution what we are providing is a three-way, preventive, defensive, and detective mechanism. It's a very state-of-the-art.
We still don't see them.
Oh my God, let me see.
Is there a green button, like
Oh,
share
okay.
screen or something?
Okay, can you?
The joys of pitching in a digital era, everybody. Take this
okay,
as a
because,
lesson.
yeah.
These things happen. It's okay.
Can
These
you
things
see it?
happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So Joe,
Now we
go
can
ahead.
see them. Could you?
Okay.
Yes. Could you start all over from the beginning?
From the beginning? All right.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Let
5
me
minutes, go.
start. Okay. All right. Let me start from the beginning. The slideshow. Can you see? Right? Yeah. Can you see? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm actually here to present you the next generation cyber, conferencing cyber geofencing platform, which is built on a multifaceted platform. The main purpose of basically providing this platform as a service is that it should be easily adaptable, pluggable, and to stop the cybercrime what we have observed over past many decades. One thing is we realize that there is a lot of infrastructure and underlying technology limitations, which typical these technologies which are available, they failed in the marketplace. One of the major problems, as we've seen in the last 5 years, is the cybercrime has tripled. Also there are cybercrime, $3.5 billion losses happened because of the business email compromises. Cybercrime damages are over $6 trillion. It will reach by 2021. Cyber criminals have earned more than $1.5 trillion in 2018. Cyber cryptocurrency losses are staggered to $4.5 billion in just last year. The social media attacks are happening everywhere, and because of this now virtual reality, there are a lot of IoT devices are going to get connected. That actually giving the cyber criminals a great opportunity to basically earn more money. So our solution is to basically address this one is a multifaceted, cybersecurity platform, which basically, adds a defense in a depth mechanism at 3 levels: preventive, detective, and protective. And I'll talk more about this one in our in our solution further. Why now? As you see that with the current COVID-19 pandemic, what FBI reported that cybercrime has actually quadrupled in last just few months. And with the post-COVID-19 world, every industry is trying to adjust, and that cybersecurity is going to now dominate that. As I mentioned that, cybercrime is going to grow to $6 trillion of that losses industry is going to observe by 2021. Look at the market size, over last year, a few years and growing to 2024, is estimated that, cybersecurity market is going to $300 billion. Our competition in this market is, if you look at the cybersecurity market, is quite wide open. It's a 60% of the almost 65% is all small players, and only 35% is the top 5 players. We don't see any direct competition with the current competitors because of many reasons. Most of the competitors are basically have a siloed platform-specific or domain-specific solution, versus our is more integrated platform at a 3 level. Our product architecture is very well thoughtful, and this is a kind of years of kind of experience what we brought into this industry. So when I'm talking about the 3 level of protective, defensive, and detective mechanism, we are actually creating this perimeter fence around your devices that will disallow the cyber criminals to attack your network or any devices. Even if they, let's say, attack, we basically are continuously monitoring and providing these detective mechanisms, who is coming in, who is going out. And even they stolen your information, we are making that information useless by our protective, SafeInfoGuard protocol. Our business model is actually in a twofold, how we're going to make the money. The 88% of the revenue is coming from the product licenses and about 12% from the service revenue. And we'll be targeting by phases the different industries, how we are going to position our product for those. In first phase and most critical is the banking and financial services and the government and healthcare. These are the critical industries facing these cyber criminal issues. Our core team are basically made up of seasoned veterans. They bring over 55 decades of collective experience. They are all formal veterans from larger corporation, Oracle, Lockheed, IBM, Big 4 consulting companies. Our strategic alliances, our partnering network is huge. Globally, we are basically partnered with more than 4,500 blue chip companies, Fortune 50 companies, government organization. This is a kind of just a quick kind of a snapshot of those who will be partner with us to test our solution. When it comes down to the financials, we are basically self-funded so far for last 20 years, or $45 million of investment went in. We are basically working with the government on around $70 million of grants. There are some other discussion going on, either special other transactional research and development, grant from the government. And as far as the VCs are concerned, we may be going for 2 rounds of funding, which in multiple stages, 70 million and 100 million. Looking at our financials, the projected revenue of $1.4 billion over 5 years are very conservative compared to $300 billion of market value. And our 10 years, about $7.2 billion of growth we're anticipating. Yes, there are basically, equity dilution as we're given based on, our current, discounted cash value of $1.3 billion over 5 years. And there's exit options are given, as
Thank you very much, Raju. We'll, we got to move on to Bert.
Sure.
Bert, are you ready?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Okay. Yep. Go ahead and share your screen. The floor is yours. You've got 5 minutes.
Yes. Wait a second. Can you also see my screen?
Oh, we can just see you right now.
All right. Can you see my screen roll?
Just seeing you. So judges, while we're getting set up, make sure you are getting those scores in and submit it over to Elena, as right after Bert, we will start to tally those up and announce our winner. Bert, we can see your screen. It's all you.
Can you see?
Yes, we can see it loud and clear. You're on stage. 5 minutes.
Very good. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Our company is not directly related with transportation, but indirectly it helps to optimize the use of transportation. So Overt is a gold fintech company with a purpose to make owning gold easier and more secure. The problem is that for a retail customer or small investor, it's difficult to buy, sell, and redeem digital form of physical gold in small quantities. The current solutions have complicated account opening, high service fees, and it's not possible to redeem smaller physical gold bars. Minimums are way too high. Overt is developing a solution that is combining gold with blockchain technology and e-commerce platform that is Webshop. This solution is more transparent and it's very easy to use. Everyone can do it. And with Overt, it's possible to buy, sell, and redeem gold with the most flexible conditions on the market. The product is built on blockchain technology and it's running on e-commerce platform. And the solution is good for customer because it's more transparent, it's easier to use, and it's cheaper than buying physical gold. Customer can sell his gold anytime with the spot price of gold, or redeem for a physical gold already from 1 gram. This is very, very low. And users can exchange their gold with cryptocurrency, for instance, Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. As the system is running on e-commerce platform, the buying process is very easy. Everyone can understand and use it very easily. And the solution is very transparent because customers know exactly how it works and how much the service costs. Also, redemption for a physical gold bar works the same and easy way. Customer knows exactly how it is, how it works. There is no hidden fees. Overt is online e-commerce platform, and the main source of revenue is from buy, sell, and redemption fees. And they encourage customers to disruptive education-based marketing and to increase the reach online. We also use cost-effective affiliate program. In addition, we also cooperate with various well-known cryptocurrency exchanges to reach advanced users. The timing is really good because the demand for gold in all areas increased compared to last year's first quarter. It's about 80%. Moreover, the demand for gold in digital form has increased around 600%, and that proves that we are on the right track. The current market cap for tokenized gold is around 150 million, and next year it will be around 1.2 billion, and in 2022 around 3.3 billion, and Overt aims to reach at least 1.5% of it. There are many companies out there who are offering tokenized gold, but compared to the two biggest companies on the market, Tether and Paxos, the onboarding in Alphort is much quicker and easier. Also, the buying system is easier. Alphort works on an e-commerce platform, not via time-consuming depositing system. It's also possible to buy directly with euros, and there is no need to convert dollars to euros to make the purchase. The service fee, minimum service fee, is many times lower, and you can redeem your gold already from 1 gram. These are definitely the best conditions on the market. Alphort has some traction with selling physical investment gold in Estonia, but we see great potential in digital production, and that's why we see a huge potential in the upcoming year. So in 2022, our minimum turnover will be 50 million. We have a strong and motivated team who is ready to execute these ambitious goals, and we're also fortunate to have experienced and already successful entrepreneurs to advise us on achieving these ambitious goals. We're at the moment raising fourth capital raising, and we want to develop a platform and finalize the token as well and start expanding in Europe. And we are raising 500K for 18% equity. Thank you, and I look forward to receiving your comments and questions.
Thank you very much, Bert, and thank you to all founders today. Again, this takes a lot of effort to get up in this new digital era. So many things can go right, so many things can go wrong. The point is that you took the time, you got up there and presented us everything that you could. So thank you all very much for doing so. Judges, make sure you get in your scores to Elena, and she'll total those up. And real quick, I want to get to Daniel for some feedback. Tess, Patrick, any feedback? And Tess, we'll start with you for Daniel. Or excuse me, Patrick, we'll start with you. Any feedback for Daniel at Genobank, our first presenter? And you're on mute, just so you know.
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, well done. It's just so hard to condense something simply into 5 minutes. I thought you did a good job at that. It would have been even better if I could have grasped the business model really clearly early on for me. You know, I got the idea. Actually, it's a pretty easy idea to get, that there's a big opportunity in privacy around DNA. So you know, you can hit me with that punch really hard, but be brief, and then tell me more about why there's a great business as a result. And then I'd have been much more engaged with that. But I think you've got a really interesting opportunity there.
Thank you, Patrick. I will. Thank you very much.
Tess, any feedback or thoughts, questions for Daniel? Oh, Tess, you might be on mute. We'll go ahead and move on to Raju. David, any comments or thoughts to Raju and his company?
Sure. Thank you. It's a noble cause, and cybersecurity has, as you've mentioned, become a much more important segment of the IT space. The issue, however, I'd say for a professional investor is that we're seeing so many companies. This is an extremely crowded field, and so the differentiation, the distinctiveness needs to come forward more clearly. You definitely talked about a comprehensive approach. That sounds noble and correct. However, I'm very leery of entrepreneurs who say we really don't have any competition. It's not that way. You have indirect competition or substitutes, even if you don't have direct competition. So really address that hard. I think that'll help you. And I think, if I may say so, the slides were a bit busy. I think simpler, fewer things on any slide, fewer words is an easier way to pitch. But you know, good on you. You're in a good field. You have obviously trained team. They're very talented. I would try and emphasize that more, and your unique value proposition, perhaps with a testimonial from a customer. That does a great service in a very short time.
Yes. Thanks, David. Yeah, appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. And Felix, any feedback for Bert, our last company to present? Up and you're on mute.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Yeah, great pitch. And funny thing is, I was just using a product like that, and I had exactly the issues you mentioned with kind of a hard friction to get into the market. you have to go through cryptocurrencies, so you have to register to get something. I like that. It was a good idea. I missed a bit the market size, and I feel you could have used, like we are right now in a very insecure time where there seems to be a tendency to go back into gold assets and things like that. So I would have loved to see a little bit more on the market size, the opportunity, what is already there in terms of revenue or what do you expect?
Wonderful, thank you. And Tess, I want to come back to you real quick. Any feedback on Daniel's project as well?
Okay. Yeah, I think that what would have been, it was a great pitch. Everyone did a good job. Reception was not that good for me for some of them, but for most part, I understood. So I think for me, what would have been really helpful is a little bit more, maybe elaboration on, the actual investment opportunity, and a little bit more about, if there was any strategic investors that, are talking to or you have in the round, and also, kind of how you're thinking about, the discussions of who's coming on, because I'm in early stage. So, it's always important to kind of see who else is going to be part of the syndicate, and how they're going to help support or champion this in terms of, branding, logistics, or opening up to other investors. Otherwise, I think overall, everyone did, a good job. PowerPoints were good. Some of the feedbacks the other panelists said was excellent. Those are spot on. In the interest of time, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you, Kyle.
Wonderful, thank you. And to all of our startups, again, congratulations, and also thank you for the time spent. We're still totaling the scores, so we should have those here in just a moment. David, Felix, Patrick, any additional feedback for any of our companies here today as well?
Well, just one thing that would have helped me would be more clarity as to customer adoption, right? Because I thought great ideas, but we invest in things that are happening. And so I always like to know who's adopting, how are they adopting, how do they hear of you? So I was once on a panel like this years ago, and there was a huge conversation around what made a great company. And an old guy at the end who was getting more and more grumpy, and he suddenly just said, great customers make great companies, right? So tell me about the customers.
It's very true, David.
I'll give a comment, and I hope I don't mean to be harsh, but something that should be left off of your slide, Raju, is cumulative revenue. It's an irrelevant statistic. We want to see progress. Cumulative is not something that investors really care about.
Okay. Yep.
Felix, Tess, any additional feedback for all of our presenters today? So Felix, let's start with you and end with Tess.
Yeah, one thing to Daniel, I like the idea, and I'm all in, and I'm all sold for blockchain decentralized ideas in health. I've worked with a couple of them, and I've realized, especially the health sector is so hard to get into. So I was missing a bit of the story, how you tackle that problem, how you tackle privacy issues and everything around in the things you're working with, because at the end of the day, it's still kind of it's a technology I believe in, but it's still untested, and many people are very, very skeptic. How this stuff is secured once it's on the blockchain. How can you secure that it's never going to be deleted?
No, I understand, and you're right. Actually, it's a long topic, but you're right.
One more point, I think, for all of you. If you say we don't have competition, it also leaves you floating in the air. We are creatures of pattern recognition. And if you can anchor yourselves in a domain and say, usually it's the classic chart like this, when you're up and to the right, or to the right. So the point is, help us understand you more quickly, more cogently, and more clearly in a rapid pace. And so that's why use case of customer is a great path to chart. It can be done on one slide. If you can have a couple, testimonials or names of customers, and showing that your sales cycle is shortening. You're starting to get acceleration in the market. Now, if you're pre-revenue, okay, that's a different story. Then you really have to focus on your product value. But if you are in the market at all, and some of you have been in the market for years, show us the progress of your revenues and your customer satisfaction.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion.
All
Thanks.
right, guys. So real quick before any more comments, I do have the winner in, and I'm excited to say for first on my time here on VCTV, we actually have a tie. So we have 2 winners, but not to leave everyone out. All 3 of you are winners. So today, each of you will get 60 seconds. That's it. I will cut you off. 60 seconds to present and just give your last closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you? Okay, so you each get 60 seconds to kind of sign off as your grand prize to this live audience of tens of thousands of people out there and to us here as investors. So Daniel, let's start with you. Again, congratulations on being a winner today. Huge thanks. 60 seconds on the clock. Closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you?
Thank you very much. I would love everybody to visit our online pitch. We're at republic.co/genobank.io. We are crowdfunding now. We have more than 1,000 investors already, and we have a lot of information there. And happy to be on touch. Thank you.
Wonderful. Raju.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. You can reach us on crossindustrysolutions.com. And also you can go to my LinkedIn profile. Most of our customers here in the US are federal government. We are partnering with them for last many decades, and also in the commercial side. So all our solution is built in partnership with them. So we are, as David mentioned, that yes, customer acquisition, and Patrick, you mentioned that we already did that one. So we are not building our solution in siloed. It is already proven in the marketplace, and we are happy to be a part of your community, and let's build this, journey together to reach our destiny.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bert.
Hi. Can
Hi.
you see me?
No, we can't see you, but you got 60 seconds to give a shout out where everyone can find you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity today. It was really a pleasure to be with you and to have this panel. So our company's website is aufor.code. So it's really easy to remember. Go and take a look of the things which we have done today. And you can also find us in Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I would be also love to connect with all of you in LinkedIn. My personal address is my family name. It's Raudberg. So I'm happy to connect with you. We are also open to various cooperations and also different partnerships. So if I have anything interesting in mind, just write me and I would be happy to talk to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Raju, Daniel, Bert, thank you so very much again for getting up on stage and sharing everything with us. And we all are available afterwards to connect with, so do not fear if you have to jump. Judges, welcome back as investors. Let's continue our discussion. So let's open that Pandora's box. Let's dive one level deeper. How has things changed for you as investors for the past 6 months and looking at these types of industries? Because it has, and I think each of you have teased it out, but let's go really open up the curtains and show everybody kind of how things have changed and what you expect to change going forward. Patrick, let's start with you.
I think at a high level, the world's going to be divided into winners and losers from the crisis. Right? And so we've been saying to our portfolio companies, you've got to position yourself as a winner from the crisis, not as a loser doing a pretty good job in the circumstances. And so I think we're looking at the world a bit differently now. We're looking at a more digital world, a more sustainable world. At least I hope we are, but I think we are. By the way, we still are actively investing, but the quality and quantity of deals has gone up, and so the bar is pretty high. But we're out there being busy.
And on that, how has things maybe changed in terms of finding those deals for us, right? Are people reaching out in more cold fashion, or how are you finding these higher quality deals and a mass quantity at the same time?
Yeah, I had worried that we would not be busy when we went into lockdown, right? So I started a series of projects in my firm, which I called dry dock projects, and they're largely unaddressed because actually a lot of people have been finding us. One of the projects though was was giving everybody a project of looking top down a little bit more, and finding sectors and approaching great companies on the view that every company is going to be open for investment. That's not entirely true, but actually we have been quite carefully reviewing the companies that we've loved and maybe haven't found it so easy to get involved with. And by the way, we're about to complete an investment in one of those in a week or two. So actually we've been much more top-down, proactive, just trying to find the best companies rather than waiting for deals to come in.
That's good. That's very good. Felix, to you as well, how has things changed on your side? How are you looking at investments slightly differently now and going forward?
Yeah, I can only agree with what David says. The number of options has not decreased. In fact, more and more people are coming in a very tough market, and show that you excel, and don't blame it on the crisis. That's definitely not going to work. But yeah, it's a bit also what I said before. I'm a bit of in a special area with all that crazy, colorful new token world and token only world. So again, what I have seen and what I can only recommend to everybody is get your token economy straight. It's just not enough to say I want to raise money by selling a token, because nobody's buying it anymore. If you don't show that you can deal with the selling pressure, that you have a business model to grow. And I'm very happy that I see some new forms of tokenized investments coming out. One, and I personally made this to the year of DAO for me, of decentralized organizations. So I'm really excited about new work environments that give a better business model and give opportunities for everybody to participate in a fair way if the token economy makes sense. I have seen more models coming up where we call it now, all these terms are also a bit buzzwordy, but it's kind of like going back to the roots. I would say we call it continuous token offering, but in essence it means when you go out as before all these token projects appeared, you didn't sell 100% of your shares. You sold as little as possible with an angel route. Then you went to Series A, B, C. So you can replicate that as a token model, where in 2017 you just sold all the tokens to the masses, and stuff dropped mostly because the business model didn't follow. So sell a little bit, find somebody to convince somebody, sell a little bit, grow from there, make something happen, show that you have customers, show that you get revenue, show that you deliver milestones. And this is something I would be, as an investor or for every private person investing in tokens, can only recommend to look to these factors.
You're bringing up some absolutely great points. Tess, to you, same question.
Excellent. Yeah. So the other panelists has shared some really good insight. For myself, it has always been a very similar bar in terms of my diligence checklist. Actively, I've been very lucky. Lots of inbound deals from warm referrals, people that actually have invested into the company. That has always been very important to me. When they do share, that goes to the top, because they show that they're not only evangelizing for the company, they're also a strategic investor. So that goes with the territory to know that that team, these investors are working for free for them and they're reaching out. So that speaks a lot to the testament of what kind of team the founders are to get the investors so inspired. Further than that, what I think is always important is the product market fit, which I know is top of mind for everyone. But in this current situation, it's even more important that the entrepreneur can articulate that, validate that, and be able to really give us the facts and proof points of that. So to that point, I think the burn rate is something that I have been adjusted, in the sense that my in the past, I think a 12 months was at least the minimum, and was comfortable. If there was other good investors involved too, or you kind of already did your diligence with who are the other future investors that may come on. So today I would say I'm much more comfortable. I am actively making investments, and recently, in the heart of COVID, I definitely closed a round with a very notable company. And moving forward, I think 18 months is the minimum, and ideally it is tough, but people look to 20 months even if that's something that the founders can really give comfort around. So I think everyone is much more looking at the customer adoption, the when to revenue, and also the cost of customer acquisition are things that we really hone in on. In the past, it was probably okay for founders just to talk about it. Today, we drill in and really want to make sure that the founders truly do have their calculations and how they're thinking about it, how they're modeling it accurately.
Good points on that. David, I'm coming to you last, but I'm curious to see what else you have to add, as I feel like, Patrick, Felix, and Tess got a lot of it out, but teeing it up to you, what has changed? I mean, you sent me a message. You guys have been doing stuff. You've been meeting with companies remotely. How has things changed for you as an investor in the investment process?
When other venture firms lean back, we lean forward. Well, we take this as a great opportunity. We moved to digital work instantly. I mean, in early March, our firm all went working from home. We were able to do that because we're in SaaS model, business to business mostly. Our companies, frankly, didn't suffer very much. Maybe in the enterprise they slowed down. They couldn't make as much sales, or people aren't doing the lunches and cocktails and all the conferences. But they adapted. Now the fintech companies really jumped to the fore because demand for credit really spiked. Many people pulled back from credit. Our companies, I'll name a few: Lendio, Fundbox, Catapult, Credirax is in the payments business, e-commerce related, Yotpo. Those folks spiked because there's much more e-commerce related than prior physical retail, and demand for financial services goes right along with that. We're also big investors in infrastructure and predictive analytics. So in the supply chain and in healthcare, IT, all those have become important. And our cybersecurity portfolio has not really been affected either, because the IT, as Raju has highlighted, has been under siege. Perhaps even more so during this period. So luckily we've been well. Let me say two things. I'm going to divide it into two parts. One is for existing CEOs of existing portfolio companies, whether you have us as an investor or are lucky enough to have other investors, both corporate angels and VCs. Now is a great important time for you to be doing contingency planning, scenario planning, so that you have a range of option plans how you can move forward into the recovery and any new pandemics or other crises. What this crisis does is it shows us none of us are invincible, none of us are invulnerable. We have to be flexible and resilient, and we have to plan for disasters. Maybe it's a pandemic, maybe it's an earthquake, maybe it's a volcano, who knows? There are a lot of bad things that can happen to us. We're fragile human beings. We need each other, and technology can really help. So we saw our great entrepreneurs go into three modes. First, it was contingency planning. What are the realities of today? What do our customer relationships look like? How can we manage to care for our employees? How can we maintain our partnerships, et cetera? If you're in the SaaS model, the business model is great for this environment because it's subscription-based and it's not subject to people just sort of cutting it off. Maybe they'll delay payment, perhaps they'll ask for a lower price, but generally they're not going to stop using the software application that they need. So that's a chance for resilience. So think how you can become more SaaS-based. That's one. The second one is think not only about stabilization first and defensive maneuvers, also think about offensive maneuvers. We've had at least two of our companies, I think now three, have done acquisitions during this crisis. These are smaller companies, but they're already able to buy smaller companies and for amazing terms. We had two deals that were both done with 0 down and 100% earnout based on the success of the product we were buying. In addition, we've had a number of companies raise rounds, as Tess mentioned, to help lengthen their runway. So we led one round when the venture community was a little bit back on their heels, not able to make decisions. We knew the inside statistics of the company. We knew how strong they were going to do. It's a company called Easy Knock, and we went forward and led a round, and it was instantly oversubscribed. So those are the kinds of things that VCs can do in cooperation with management. Not all the syndicate is going to hang together in the same way. So we've been talking with our entrepreneurs very closely about if some of the syndicate partners are leaning back, how can we lean back and bring more allies to support you? Another interesting technique we did when we were having some questions about pricing, because pricing is fallen compared to 3 months or 5 months ago. What we did is like, hey, we're not trying to take advantage of you, but we know that the next round of financing may be difficult or at least uncertain. So we arranged a new technique of, or perhaps it's been used in the past, a new term to add warrants to our investment structure that are shorter term than normal, not 10 years like normal, but more like 30 months. Because if as Tess mentioned, the recovery takes 2 years and we need 24 months of cash, well, we get a bargain on the pricing, and you, the entrepreneur, know that we have an incentive to invest that second tranche as a warrant into the future. So happy to talk with people about that, directly. Our email is blumbergcapital.com, our website. info@blumbergcapital will get you response for your pitch plan. We're open for business. We really support you and praise you, because you entrepreneurs are keeping our world safer, healthier, and we're going to get through this together. Thank you very much, LaToken.
Absolutely, guys. This has been phenomenal. So I feel like we've covered almost everything, and we could talk for another 2 hours, but we don't have that time today. And it's Friday. Everyone should be able to enjoy their day, whether it's a day off or a day of work. Nonetheless, I would love to do closing thoughts. So Felix, let's start with you. Closing thoughts on everything we've just talked about, whether it be opportunities or just thoughts around supply chain, transportation, technology, and travel, along with where everyone can find you as you wrap up.
Yeah, I love what David just said. It's also true. I mean, get your metrics in place, and as we established before, do your homework. And your homework can even be sitting down in the evening and watching Shark Tank, because you can learn a hell lot out of it. Me personally, I just rewatched Silicon Valley, the series. It's like so many funny things that are so true for many entrepreneurs, and you can learn, a lot out of, making a good evening at home. So don't only work, but make it in a fun way, and make it with a plan that you can always progress, because at the end of the day, you have to do stuff in order to get somewhere, and it will not come by your own. So do it in a metrics-driven way with a plan, and then you will hopefully be successful with what you do. And maybe also, look into, in terms of like all the tokenomics, there's so many different and very interesting idea how you can plan finances in a completely new way that also tells a completely different story to an investor. If you can convince any investor that they return their money fast in a very likely way, then you have high chances to get into the same boat with them.
I love it. Where can everyone find you?
Please hook me up on either LinkedIn, Felix Mago, MAGO, or on Twitter, Felix Mago, without anything in between, Felix Mago _ dash.
Perfect. There you go. The man of dash. Don't forget the dash. Tess, same question to you. Closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, this was a fun panel. Everyone had amazing insights. So I think just to keep it short, everyone can find me at Tess Hau LinkedIn, TSS, last name HAU. Love to keep in touch. And also, Twitter, Tess Hau 1. So, look forward to learning more from everyone, and feel free to reach out if I can be helpful in any way to our investors or to our founders.
Wonderful. Patrick, same to you. Closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
Closing thoughts. I guess I'd like to mention our entrepreneurs, because they've really impressed me during these difficult times. None of us can really predict the future, right? None of us saw this coming from a long way away, really. But they reacted incredibly quickly and incredibly well. They wasted no time complaining. And I'm just so impressed by them. So my thoughts are with them, and we've tried to be as supportive as we can be. We are very much open for business. You can find me probably most easily at LinkedIn, Patrick Sheehan, that's SHEEHAN, at ETF Partners, or or at etfpartners.capital. And thank you very much if you've been listening.
Thank you, Patrick. David, same to you. Closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
I'll start with where to find us. I think, again, come to our website. It's new and renewed, blumbergcapital.com. Make sure that it's BLUMBERG, not the OO guy. We are West Coast based. He's in New York. We have New York too, but we're early stage. He does different things. The LinkedIn, I'm David at Blumberg Capital, or at David Blumberg, and then on Twitter also at David Blumberg. I think the closing thought is really, we're in this together. Technology can help. The door is not closed for venture capital. It is a little harder now. I don't want to be Pollyannish. It's not as easy. So in that situation, you entrepreneurs need to think of who you know and who can help you get introduced to us. Tess mentioned that she takes warm referrals. We do too. We note who sends us the deal. Most of our best deal flow comes from our CEOs and from other folks that we've known around the industry for years, trusted lawyers, accountants, other VCs, angels. So find those folks that can connect to us if you don't know us directly, and try and have them introduced. That's always a help. Make your pitch very clear. Show how you're delivering value, how you are helping other people. Everyone can have a social mission. If you help other people, you have a social mission. That is the definition of, world capitalism. We trade with each other because we can't each be a farmer and be self-sufficient. We have to trade and do other things. So that's your mission. Show us how you're helping. I think the virtual, digital are going to be accelerated by this. So it's not a bad time. It's actually a good time. And keep your heads about you, love your family, and keep safe.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. To our investors. Again, your time is priceless, and we appreciate you coming on the show today for as long as you have, sharing your insights on everything from the industry to the technologies to the world of investment and some of those things that you've discovered behind the scenes. To our startups, thank you very much. Again, it's a big opportunity to get up on stage, and it takes a lot, and we really appreciate the effort that you gave today. To our audience, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a little bit out of something. If not, again, we are all available online in all social medias. If you did enjoy today's episode, please click the subscribe button or the thumbs up, leave a comment as well. And as always, big shout out to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for making VCTV and all of us come together here today. With that being said, I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host. You can find me on all social media, along with anywhere else on the web. Closing out today in this week's edition of VCTV. See you back here